Bruce Feldman, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you.
You go to Columbus tonight?
I am. It's a red eye. Go to see Buckeyes and Nittany Lions. Can't wait.
Red eye. It's not direct. Where are you flying to?
No, flying to Atlanta, and we thankfully to our buddy Brady Quinn, he's hooking us up with golf. Maybe getting on at Muirfield. So
wow,
that's awesome.
Brady Quinn's going to get you on at Muirfield, huh?
Brady Quinn's the man. He was the man last week in South Bend. We knew that.
Well, I mean, what is that like walking around South Bend with Brady Quinn? What's that like?
That was actually the part of I was looking forward to most because, Brady's a big deal. You were walking around with whoever you're walking around with in these college towns.
Yeah.
But Brady in South Bend, it was awesome to be around where it's like, first of all, he's a big guy, so he's not going to be sneaking in around anywhere, but you're walking around tailgates up to the stadium. It's like, whoa, there's Brady. And he's awesome about it because he's gracious to all these, all these diehard fans. There's people coming up to him going, I named him after you.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. It's happened. There's a bunch of Bradys.
Are there any Quinns? Maybe it could be a Quinn, too.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's South Bend, right? It's a big Irish crowd.
So people are pointing to, 20-year-old kids who are
yes, I was named after you or whatever. I named him after you. And it's just like, it's a really cool experience because at one point we went to a tailgate and we were walking in and it was a big crowd of our group. When I say big, maybe 8 or 10.
Yeah.
Urban was in the group. Urban's won 3 national titles. He actually was an assistant at Notre Dame in the 90s. I'm not saying nobody noticed Urban.
Sure.
Everybody noticed Brady. Brady was the guy.
Did you meet any Rudies?
I think we met the original Rudy. There was
I gotta duck him.
He wants to fight Rich.
Did you know that?
What?
Did you know you didn't hold on a second? We're about to return to our radio network. We'll get into this in a second. Back on the Rich Eisen Show radio network, sitting at the Rich Eisen Show desk, furnished by Grainger with supplies and solutions for every industry. Grainger is the right product for you. Call clickgrainger.com or just stop by. As Bruce Feldman of Fox Sports and the Athletic has. The reason why we're laughing for our radio audience is we just revealed to our friend that Rudy Rudiger wants to fight me. And I found this out from David Anspaugh, the director of Rudy, told me that Rudy lives next door to Mike Tyson. Didn't he say that?
There's so much weird stuff going on right now.
Yeah. It is. Well, and so, because, I am, as you know, a diehard Wolverine. So I can't stand the movie Rudy. I'm one of the few people that just, because again, the moralizing of all that's good about sports and college football is Notre Dame, right? And that drives me a little bit nuts. It's like nails on a chalkboard.
I get that. I don't get where all of a sudden now.
You guys in your post 50 years, is it real? Is it real? How fake is the movie? And did he really come up with a sack? Did he really get carried off and all of that stuff? And apparently Rudy has heard this and he wants to fight me over it.
How old? Honestly, how old is Rudy now?
It's got to be in his 60s, I imagine.
Is that right?
You guys are north of 50, correct?
I am 50. I'm a lover. I don't want to fight anybody.
Rudy's 75.
Is that really?
Yeah.
Oh, you should do it. You should take him up on that, Rich.
Okay. I don't know. He wants to fight me.
75-year-old.
So, yeah.
I think this has, by the way, been good for everybody. It's been good for Rudy. People are talking, it's everything. And anyway, so, but... Okay. I didn't expect this morning.
What do we take out of the Notre Dame win over USC? What do you take away from that?
A few things. First of all, that was the first time I was in that stadium, at least for a game, since the Bush Push game. Really awesome game day atmosphere. They have really ramped up. And I thought Marcus Freeman's team, he's the first time head coach. It's a big job. He'd only been there 1 year as an assistant. I feel like he has grown into the job. They have some really good athletes. I'm interested to see how they take the next step. I thought they had a really good plan for Caleb. They overmatched USC. USC, people can talk a lot about the defense, and it's not very good right now. But it's the offensive line, when you looked at them, they did not look like a top 10 caliber offensive line. And so what I saw from that is Caleb is trying to walk a tightrope, and he does a lot of this stuff. And there's a NFL guy who I really respect, and he made an interesting observation. He was like, it's like he's trying to hit a 5-run home run every play. And that's what it looked like. And he made 3 turnovers. They had a bunch of mistakes. And he is trying to play, I don't want to say just like the perfect game, because it's one thing to be efficient. It's another thing to make spectacular play after spectacular play. And USC was not ready for the big moment. Notre Dame was. And I don't know how USC puts the pieces back. Because remember, that's an out-of-conference loss.
Right.
So if they somehow can beat Oregon and Washington and not stumble, they go to the Pac-12 title game. They still have a chance to make the playoff. But they need to get better, not just the defense, but really they need to get better in a lot of places, including on the offensive line.
So then what is your takeaway from Washington, Oregon? What a game that was.
Yeah, I think the way Michael Penix Jr. is playing right now, his receivers are really good. He is playing at a really, really high level. They stretch you out. They throw deep balls. He's accurate deep. Kalen DeBoer, this is his second season. Hopefully the rest of the football audience is learning who this guy is. He's a fantastic coach. And remember, they were really bad when he took over. He came from Fresno State. He's a guy who won a bunch of national titles as an NAIA coach. Very even keel. I think, I wouldn't write off Oregon. I think Oregon's a really talented all-around team. But what you're seeing right now with Washington, and again, they may stumble because they had their hands full with a good Arizona team a couple weeks ago. I think I'd be surprised if everybody doesn't get picked off at least once in the Pac-12.
Do you think that if that does happen, the Pac-12 is left without a playoff seat? Do you think that's possible? Because if Georgia moves on, they're in, right?
If Florida State moves on, they're in. And I think if there's a one-loss Big Ten team, if those guys pick themselves off,
right?
I think that would probably leapfrog, because then whoever that is would still have probably as good a win, if not a better win, than anything that's going to be in the Pac-12. Now, here's the caveat to that.
Yes.
This is the last year in terms of, probably for the Pac-12, obviously, but the Big Ten West still stinks, right? You got a beleaguered Iowa team that is winning in spite of its offense, and now their offense has all sorts of season-ending injuries. So if Iowa comes out of that side, look, maybe they'll be 11-1 or even worse, 10-2. They could, the ranking will still not be. It's not like they're going to be 24th in the country. The Pac-12, on the other hand, because it's the two best teams, whoever plays in that title game is going to get a boost. I think if there's a one-loss Pac-12 team, they're going to get in. Even if it's USC. If USC runs the table, that means they would end up having wins over Oregon and Washington, and UCLA, and Oregon State, I think.
So did Oklahoma knock Texas out, or what about either one of those two teams?
That's the other wild card. Now, if Texas wins, and if Texas is a one-loss team in there,
yeah,
and they've avenged their loss, and they beat Alabama pretty soundly in Tuscaloosa, I think that you'll get them there. I just have a hard time thinking something is going to happen here. Because right now you have North Carolina that's undefeated. You have obviously Florida State is undefeated. I just don't think form is going to hold. There's going to be teams that are going to get knocked off.
Bruce Feldman here on the Rich Eisen Show. Before we get to the upcoming game in Columbus, Ohio State, and Penn State, Brock Bowers getting the tightrope surgery on his ankle. What does that mean to you? Because my question is, does that show that he wants to play again this year for Georgia to get 3 championships in a row? Or is he just making sure he is completely cleaned up and ready to go to be a top 5 pick in Detroit next year for the NFL draft?
I think fact that he got that surgery, on Monday or as soon as possible, Tua had, I believe it twice, and the second time was the year LSU won the national title. He actually only missed 1 game.
Okay.
Now, they had a bye week in there, but Georgia's had other players. One of their most talented offensive linemen, who might be a top 15 pick, he had it, and they have a tight end who already had it. Those guys, it feels like they were on the 4 to 6, weeks outside. So, I mean, if that's the case, he probably gets back in time for the SEC title game. I mean, I think they do need him to win the national title, because I don't think their offense is great enough as it's structured now. Like, without him, I think they probably lose to Auburn, because he took over the game in the second half.
Yeah, he's that good.
He is that good. The defense, which I think they expected to be lights out, I know they lost a lot of terrific players to the NFL, hasn't been that great so far. Now, they've had guys who are banged up too, but it's been, they look good against Kentucky, but that's really been it, right? And so my hunch is he will come back at some point for the SEC title game, at least. And if he does, then how ready is he to go? You know, my guess is they'll get Alabama. I guess they could get LSU if LSU ends up rolling through. And Jaden Daniels has been phenomenal, but the defense there has not. So there's a lot to be sorted out, but I don't think he's done. I don't, because if he was, I don't think he would have gotten that surgery at that point.
So then let me give you one more scenario here. Florida State moves on. Ohio State beats Penn State this weekend. Michigan shows up at home against Ohio State. They're both undefeated. Let's say one more time. The Pac-12 champion is clearly one of the best teams in the country based on how everything else goes on. Is it possible that Georgia gets beat in the SEC championship game and the SEC gets 0 playoff teams? Is that a possible scenario here?
It's possible. I think the thing that would be tricky for the SEC in that regard, because look, you know, the SEC this is not one of its best years.
Yeah, which means, you know, treating the SEC like the rest of college football.
Yeah.
Is that heresy? Is that heretical? Even say
it
such
shouldn't
a thing?
be. I think the way some of this domino stuff works is if Texas comes out of it and avenges that loss,
Doesn't lose the rest of the year.
and then Texas has the win over Alabama, and let's say Alabama's the one-loss team, and Alabama has one loss where it was at home. It's not a terrible loss, but you can't put Texas. I don't think you can put Alabama in over Texas
Even
it comes
if
down
they
to
beat
that.
Georgia in the SEC championship.
It's a great win, but the head-to-head, it was in your place.
Yeah.
I just don't, because at the end of the day, like, you're going to look at what the SEC is. Yeah, you have a great win over Georgia, but the SEC West, I mean, then you're talking about they would have beaten what would be a 3-loss LSU team at least, and LSU got dominated in the opener by Florida State. And LSU has another loss that's not, it's not great. So a 3-loss team, you'd have one great win. The other team would actually have a great win too, and it's against the team in question. If it came down to that was the head-to-head. I also think, if you have an undefeated Big Ten champ, they're definitely going.
Right.
But
what about let's just, the loser of Michigan, Ohio State? They're both undefeated. And then that's the end of that?
I think if the loser of that team, I don't think you're getting 2 Big Ten teams in that case.
Okay.
Not if you have an SEC, an Alabama that's beaten Georgia and has one loss. You're not, because let's be realistic. Like, Michigan's been impressive. They haven't played anybody yet. They have a 2-game schedule. Penn State. And
Ohio State.
And Ohio State at home, because whoever comes out of the Big Ten East is going to play an Iowa team that, no disrespect to Kirk Ferentz, he's done a really good job, with winning games. But no one's going to look at that and go, "Oh, you beat Iowa and they're really good." That's just a really limited offensive team, and so they're not going to get a big push. So what you're getting really essentially is, hey, if you beat whoever you beat, you have one really good win. And, Ohio State's resume is going to be a little better because they did win in South Bend, and now that win is boosted. Same deal for Penn State as it is for Michigan, I think. It's just not, the resume is not going to be very strong beyond the heavyweight wins.
Bruce Feldman here from Fox Sports and The Athletic. Let's get to it then. What's at stake, Ohio State and Penn State? Just writ large, obviously, for a national championship, and both coaches in their current situations. What do you got for me?
Like, both guys have, James Franklin's done a terrific job there. He's getting paid a ton. If they lose this game, it's not like people are going to go, "Oh, we got to make a coaching change." I don't see anything like that. Same thing with Ryan Day. The chatter will be way louder for him. I mean, he's got an amazing record. He can still avenge it, when when his team goes to Ann Arbor. In James Franklin's case, I think he's like 1-8, against these, powerhouse programs. He's beaten Ohio State that one time. He has beaten them, but it's just like they've been close. They haven't gotten it done since. I think this is a really talented team. I think if this game was in Happy Valley, as it was last year, I would pick this Penn State team over Ohio State. Like, when we were in Columbus 2 weeks ago for the Maryland game, I didn't see anything from the Buckeyes that day that made me feel like they're going to dominate this game. I think Penn State's really talented. They may have even better athleticism than Ohio State. I don't think you could have ever said that in a long time.
That's correct. Right.
Their quarterback is like, I think Drew Aller is more gifted than Kyle McCord, but he's never played on this quite to this stage yet. Mm-hmm. He's played last year, but it's just like now you're carrying it. I think Penn State has the better offensive line, but they're going to be tested. Ohio State has a good defense. This is better. They're better than they were last year. And they have a bunch of guys on the D-line who are very capable. And one of them last year, JT Tuimoloau, took over the game in the fourth quarter. So here we go, Penn State. Here's your chance to prove people wrong.
So it's so close that the only thing that can tip the scales is if Lou Holtz says something in the next 48 hours?
Yeah, I don't think Ryan Day needs to worry about anybody giving them added motivation. It's like, okay, how good is our offensive line? And how healthy are we going to be? Travion Williams, who's missed a bunch of time. He's a really gifted running back. Yes. Is he going to be good to go and good to give them a difference maker in the backfield so they're not one-dimensional?
See, one of the many things I appreciate about you, Bruce, is you give me information and you don't take my bait. You just don't take my bait. You don't give me what I'm looking for.
I got sucked in on the 75-year-old man fighting story.
80, 85. I think you're younging him up. You're younging him up. All right. Did you take in anything from the Senate hearing on NIL yesterday?
It's stupidity. I mean, it's like they can't even control what they got. Like, you got one guy who's talking about it's chaos. Who's like, come on. Anybody who pays 1% attention to what goes on in our political forum, you have no business talking about that when you got a clown show going and in that forum. Mm-hmm. So no, I mean,
because then what? Then why are there some people in power in
because they're
college football?
Jackasses. Well, you have this thing where you have the ratings have been sky high for college football. There's been way more interest in college football now than over this 5-year stretch.
I would agree with
peaking.
That. Yes,
but you have people who they're clowns. They are clowns. Why? Like, it's embarrassing that they're actually in positions of power, but the idea that they're wading in on, they don't know what they're talking about.
So then why again, Greg Sankey and others in power saying, hey, let's see what Congress has to say?
I don't
know. Because
I think they're uncomfortable with the power dynamic of how it's starting to play out. I mean, there are people in positions of power in college football who are talking about things like revenue sharing and things that are that are awkward and uncomfortable for some, not all, but some of the positions in leadership. I mean, it's a sport that has no real leadership at the top. Now, why they would turn to something else that has bizarro leadership is ridiculous to me.
Well, because I guess they are the federal authorities and can somehow potentially pass legislation that does make something uniform when they're desperate for uniformity. You know what I mean? And so that I understand. That's why I'm saying, that way everything's going with realignment, the way everything's going with television contracts, they're the true powers, right? The people who are running Fox Sports and ESPN.
Yes, that is
right.
Exactly right.
That is the true power right now that school presidents listen to, and
because that's where the money is right now.
Exactly. This is where the money is. So that's why I'm saying that you get a bunch of schools that are like-minded, that have partnerships. I mean, the Big Ten just gave the commissionership to a former CBS sports executive. I know Tony Petitti for years. And so, Greg Sankey's done deals with Tony Petitti. So you get a bunch of people together in a room, figure out who's in the boat, who gets to be, relegated to start, who can come back in the boat, and you create a new construct where you come up with your own rules that can pass Supreme Court muster for the NIL. That's what I'm saying.
Let's put that aside for a minute.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of rules that I think frustrate college football coaches at a high level that sometimes get made by people who are not playing the same game, or they're not even really involved in the game, but that's how the NCAA is structured. And I think there is, some of the people I talk to who are in the sport are like, hey, we need to get them out of the mix.
Who's them?
Them is the NCAA. Because it is a completely different dynamic than what happens for women's volleyball or softball or track or, these other sports are just not the same. They don't travel the same. They don't operate the same.
Well, they don't make
anywhere near the same money.
Uh-huh.
And so you have like Division II schools or FCS schools, wading in on this, it's not logical, right? So you will have, I heard you say this before, 64. I don't know if it's 68. It's right now, it's not a neat number to sort out, hey, this is how we're going to run it. We're going to have some form of revenue sharing. Mm-hmm. We're going, whether it's Greg Sankey or Tony Petitti, my guess is it would probably be one of those two people who would be the Goodell of this new entity. And then I think your officiating is uniform. A lot of other things are more uniform. Scheduling is uniform.
You're right.
Yes. And I think, look, there's a football coach I know well who's working in college who knows the NFL model really well. We have talked about this a lot. And I think it will at some point get there because it's more logical. Now, the other stuff you're bringing in from this week, I just sit there and I'm like, these are buffoons. Like, they don't know any, like, it's theater to them.
Yeah.
Like, it's theater. It's like, we don't need to have those jackasses involved in this process.
Especially since many of them just walk off the hearing floor and go do a podcast. But that's for a different day and a different time. But I just wanted to get your 2 thoughts on all of that, 2 cents on all of that. Enjoy Columbus. Tell everyone there I said hi.
I will.
Because I'm genuinely interested in their well-being.
Okay.
What? I'm being
Being what?
What's the word for it?
Arrogant?
Disingenuous.
I got it.
Thank you. Oof. Not arrogant. Why would you say arrogant? Disingenuous.
You've been arrogant for 2 years.
Oh, you have no idea how I'm going to be in November, potentially.
Potentially. He couched that a little bit.
Doesn't have to. It's not a given. Not like this weekend. That's a given. Ha! Woo! I feel good. Good to see you, Bruce.
Good to see you.
You bet. Bruce Feldman, not taking my bait once again, but it's one of the many reasons why I love having the gentleman from The Athletic and Fox Sports on right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Catch The Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.